No, for some reason I had to look back at one of my older videos and I was wondering why the quality was maxed at 720. Like, where was the 1080p option? Then I had to go through my OBS and realize I was not recording. I had never recorded it at 1080p. I wanted to do something on Battlefront 2, and this is actually the first video going up in 1080p. So now, if anyone was wondering why the quality was never that great, well, now you know why. And now, and hopefully this video you can actually watch it at 1080p at 60 frames as well. Recently, Battlefront 2 saw a surging rise in player counts across all platforms, supposedly even going as high as 100k during peak hours, while on PC it's around 80,000. Which is an incredible amount of players on a game that had otherwise slipped away silently. 2020 was the last major update for Battlefront 2, which saw the release of the Scarif update, adding in themed uniforms for the Empire and Rebels. But one thing the DLC did not add was any of the Rogue One heroes, or at least the major characters featured in Rogue One. Having them as part of the Scarif update would have made for an overall solid update, and what was to be the game's final update, before the developers had moved on to other projects. I recently installed the game yesterday and was amazed to jump into full lobbies of Galactic Assault, Blast, Heroes vs. Villains, and the Big Mode Supremacy, which is what's featured in the background. With May 4th having been a few weeks ago, it's usually when many of the currently available Star Wars multiplayer games in particular begin seeing a surge in player counts, some that are higher than others, kind of just depends on the game, but not to the point where Battlefront 2 in particular blew up like it did. This also led to players spamming in the in-game chat to bring back Battlefield 3 or make Battlefield 3. It's no surprise that we originally had a Battlefield 3 in the works and was apparently 99% complete when it was canceled. That was a huge slap in the face to both the community and the developers who worked on it. It never made sense to cancel an immensely popular game from one of the biggest IPs in the world. I'll quickly list off the reasons why supposedly the game had been canceled. The LucasArts internal problems. LucasArts was struggling with internal issues, and the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney led to its eventual closure. This internal instability likely affected the development of Battlefront 3. The developer-publisher conflict. Free Radical and LucasArts had a strained relationship, with Free Radical reporting difficulty in getting paid in a sense that LucasArts was actively trying to make their work more difficult. The potential licensing costs. EA, the publisher, may have rejected a pitch for a third-party game due to licensing costs. Third game due to licensing costs. The shift in focus in management. LucasArts was reportedly focusing on cost control and was removing management layers, which may have impacted the project. And the final point, development challenges. The development process faced challenges including missing functionality, an absence of working build for the Xbox 360, and an ability to deliver on key milestones. This all read on just a quick overview of why Battlefront 3 was likely canceled. This news of Battlefront 2 surging popularity, or not popularity, but surging player counts, even got the attention of ex-DICE developers who once again saw interest in wanting to see Battlefront 3. At this point in time, it wouldn't take long to finish what was left of the original Battlefront 3 and release it to the public, albeit without the graphical fidelity that Battlefront 2 has, though the graphics wasn't what made the game so popular. Even the original Battlefront 2 still has a healthy player count. It's obviously no secret Battlefront 2 had a very controversial launch with the way loot boxes were tied to progression and unlocking heroes who at the time saw half the available roster locked. It wasn't until the Geonosis update that Battlefield 2 really kicked off and made a complete 180, finally giving us the game we originally deserved. Loot boxes were removed, progression was now tied to in-game challenges, leveling up weapons, heroes, and classes, and every single hero was also unlocked from the start, giving us the agency players wanted, and every consecutive update after Geonosis was just a solid win after win after win after win. Nowadays, the only types of updates the game gets are from the modding community, be it heroes or new maps. If you were to pick up Battlefront 2 today, you could see some enjoyment out of the multiplayer for possibly a couple more months before the player counts inevitably drops again. At that point, you could just start modding and have just as much fun playing offline. I don't know how far the modding has gone, as I don't ever plan to mod Battlefront 2. I already have a stupidly heavily modded Skyrim. In fact, I actually had to buy a new terabyte SSD, a solid state drive, and completely remove my old modded Skyrim after hearing about that Novus Ascension pack that includes all the prerequisite files needed to mod the game, on top of including tons of cosmetic, combat, companions, and UI overhaul mods. Took up roughly maybe about 70% of that hard drive. I also have a heavily modded Cyberpunk 2077 and XCOM 2, So right now I just don't have the space to start modding another large game, nor do I want to deal with it, nor do I even have the time to deal with it. It's just way too much work. As far as Battlefront 3 is concerned, I'm not sure it would be the same game a lot of us would like to see if the current gaming climate has anything to say about it, especially if it falls on EA and DICE and we just don't have to look no further than what happened with 2042. I would love to see Battlefield 3 just as much as the next guy, or Battlefront 3, sorry, it says Battlefield 3, I meant Battlefront 3, just as much as the next person, but we have to remain cautious because this is Battlefront we're talking about. It's basically become the Half-Life 3 equivalent. So long as the gameplay remains the same though, then they will have very little to possibly fuck up, and adding in Conquest wouldn't hurt either. Now, there's many other games out there that definitely needed a sequel to finish their stories, and many more who could do with a remaster. I personally would love to see a remaster of Ace Combat's Holy Trinity, which is Ace Combat 4 Shattered Skies, Ace Combat 5 The Unsung War, my personal favorite Ace Combat game ever, and Ace Combat 0 The Belkin War. And from another popular franchise, Need for Speed, and remastering both Need for Speed Undergrounds 1 and 2. If greed didn't exist, we probably would have seen many of these games long ago without players demanding and without all the incessant and expensive microtransactions. Now, if Battlefront 3 were to, let's just say that Battlefront 3 was to come out, or they're in development, or they're redoing what the original Battlefront 3 was, best thing to go about it and make Battlefront 3 the best Star Wars game out there is include a lot, and well, not just a lot, include as many of the extended universe characters as you possibly can. Off the top of my head, I can think of Ben Solo, can think of Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker's wife. We need characters like those to be included in Battlefront 3. There is so much lore in the extended universe, so many characters, so many different conflicts, so many stories and whatnot. Granted, Battlefront never really had a story element to it, at least in the remakes that they did for Battlefronts 1 and 2. But the extended universe just adds so many different possibilities for Battlefront 3 to be the best game out there. Not what Disney wants, it's what the players want. We wanted to see more extended universe in there, and right now the only way to appreciate anything from the extended universe lore in Battlefront is to mod the game, because right now the modding community, you can find tons of extended universe characters. So what would I like to see in a Battlefront game moving forward? Stuff that we have not seen yet in Battlefront, although there is the one obvious one, if for those of us who actually saw the alpha builds of Battlefront 3, the transition from space to ground combat being seamless. That way it's a huge, fully realized battlefield, being able to move from a ship on the ground and go all the way up into space, and then of course the ship combat as well, being able to board enemy player ships, or not enemy player ships, but enemy ships, destroy the ships from the inside just like we could in the original Battlefront series. Of course, the extended universe characters, the roster for Battlefront 3 would be amazing if they would include the extended universe characters. And then of course, Levolution. That is something Battlefront has not had yet, which is fully destructible environments caused by the players themselves and caused just by the battles to take place. I would love to see those make it into Battlefront 3. Those would be some major improvements. And then of course, kind of just carrying over what we've seen in Battlefront 2 to Battlefront 3 to really make it a full, complete experience. And of course, not only just including the extended universe characters, but also there's so many battles within the extended universe that we could see making their way into Battlefront 3 for a truly unique Battlefront experience. I think it would be really amazing for those of us who have actually played the game if we actually saw Dash Rendar. I don't know if Dash Rendar actually is a character mod that you can actually play on the modded side of things. That's one game that was so early on, one of the earliest basically extended universe games we ever saw. And if you're not familiar with it, it's called Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. A game from Nintendo 64. That is one game that I would love to see a remaster, a remake, a redo, a re-something, or maybe even a sequel to it. It was such an amazing game. It ended on a cliffhanger. We're not sure if Dash Rendar ever survived the ending or not. I would love to see him actually make his official debut in Battlefront 3. If Battlefront 3 was to happen. It's just, again, whenever I bring up anything extended universe by Star Wars, I always think of those three specific characters: Mara Jade, Kyle Katarn, and Dash Rendar. Especially Dash Rendar. He is one of the oldest extended universe characters out there. I'll wrap it up by saying that I believe Star Wars is on a warpath that will never end as far as the games go. While it was made by Ubisoft, I still enjoyed Outlaws for what it is. It's a fun narrative experience, and it's where I finally learned how to play Sabak. No Jedi were involved, but it was still a very obvious Star Wars game. I never saw Outlaws as a bad Star Wars game, and I never think it's due to Ubisoft having made made the game. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, and I'll call out a bad game when I see one. Always kind of try and separate the artist from the game. Yeah, Ubisoft made the game, but they still understood what Star Wars was. And this is a very stark contrast to Warhammer. See, with Warhammer, another popular sci-fi universe, it has difficulties making a really good game because of how warped and how odd the lore can get. Alrighty, that was a phone call I had to take. Hopefully that phone call follows through with what they were offering me. Would actually make it so much easier for me to focus more on YouTube. I haven't been able to focus as much on YouTube because of how exhausting and how tiring I get from the detailing job I had, which I already left. I just couldn't do it anymore. It just wasn't worth the money. Getting paid by flat rate, which was I only get paid so long as I touch a car. If I'm not touching a car, I'm not making money, and if I'm not making money, I'm just sitting there literally wasting my time. There are a couple days there where I waste 3 to 4 hours at a time not touching cars, which meant that was about 4 hours worth of my personal time I did not get paid for. So if you work in flat rate, who only gets paid for the work that you do or something like that, you understand sometimes it's just not worth it. But anyway, as I was saying, so at this point, I believe it's hard to make a bad Star Wars game because the lore is easy to understand, and there's thousands of stories that can be retold from the books or completely original stories because of all the established lore, which is stark contrast to another popular sci-fi universe, Warhammer, which has difficulties making a good game because of how warped the lore is and whether or not the writers of that particular story understand the lore and power scaling of the universe itself. There is a reason why you'll find many Warhammer games out there, mostly on Steam too. If you look at the reviews, a lot of them are mixed, with some mostly positive and very few very positive. I think Space Marine 2 at this time is actually sitting on a very positive score. It used to be overwhelmingly positive on the first couple weeks of its release. Its dipping in reviews actually kind of came from the content, not the actual story or the gameplay. Those parts of the game perfectly fine. But what do you guys think? Do you actually want to see a Battlefront 3 remade either by EA and DICE or probably another company who you have more faith in? Or do you want to see a remaster of some older games that you like? Let me know in the comments down below. Until then, thanks for watching this unfortunately shorter video. Until then, thanks for watching. Tune into whatever the next video will be. Have a good one, and hey, go and play Battlefront 2 if you haven't yet.
This is it, brothers. The final objective. Destroy it and we'll bring the ship down.